GM friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Friends Validator Show. We are finally back after a crazy conference season in Korea, and there's a lot to catch up on, including on Osmosis. But in case this is your first rodeo, I'm your host, Juri Maibaum, and this show is the hub that brings together crypto pioneers, exciting projects, and a thriving community. We at Friends Validator are a core contributor to the staking sector and believe that it will grow into a multi-billion-dollar industry over the next couple of years. On the show, you will learn how to profit from the proof of stake run-up, how to make passive income in crypto for staking, and how to stay ahead of the curve. If this sounds interesting to you and you want to profit from the staking revolution, subscribe to this show. And today's episode marks the 11th episode of Builder's Diary. If this is your first Builder's Diary episode, this format sheds light on the amazing people behind your favorite proof of stake chains and applications. Let's find out what visions our fellow builders follow, how they got to where they are today, and what future developments they anticipate. And today we are joined by Sunny Aggarwal, co-founder of Osmosis, and we will talk about his early days in crypto, his grand vision for Bitcoin, Osmosis, Cosmos, Urbit, and his principles in crypto, and so much more. And with that being said, Sunny, welcome to the show. Good to have you back once again.
Thanks for having me back. I think the second time in like 3 months.
Yeah, pleasure as always, also within such a short period of time. And this will actually be the first Builder's Diary episode that will also be uploaded on YouTube, because there are so many things that are so relevant for various audiences. But let's start at the beginning. I think you haven't mentioned that too often, but what does your background actually look like? Where were you born? Can you maybe also talk a little bit about your academic career before entering the crypto industry?
Yeah, sure. So let's start from the beginning. I was born in India, but I moved to North America when I was like 2 years old. First to Canada, lived there for 5 years, and then moved to the US at the age of 7. So I basically grew up in New Jersey, and went to like a public high school, and just very academically focused. Indian American parents tend to be very academic oriented, but my parents are always also like, for Indian American parents, like also pretty chill and like just very open to let me like pushing me to explore like different things and like different things I'm interested in. I was in like Boy Scouts and like camping and all sorts of like different stuff. And then throughout high school, like I thought I was going to do robotics. Like that was like the thing. I was in like every high school robotics competition you can think of. I probably like participated in it, like FRC, Vex, Zero Robotics, for RoboCop. Like yeah, I was like doing all of them, and like I just really enjoyed it. And so that's what I kind of thought I was going to do. Like I thought like when it was time to go to college, I was kind of thought I would like go into robotics. And out of the colleges, I ended up going to UC Berkeley, partially because they had like they had this like program called electrical engineering and computer science, and I was like really excited about that because it's like great. I got to do like both the like hardware and software side, which is what I was excited about. And so I got to Berkeley, and while I was there, I just kind of like came across, when you like first join, like when you go to college for the first time, you're just like joining all of these different clubs, like, trying to find your tribe, I guess. I went to all like a bunch of different clubs, like some robotics clubs. One day my roommate was going to like the Bitcoin club meeting. And it was like, I kind of like decided, hey, I'll tag along with you. I had heard about Bitcoin before, and so I kind of tagged along. And the guys who I showed up with, who were there, like I walked in this meeting, and they were talking like Monero ring signatures or something, and it was like way over my head. And so I kind of said like, hey, but I was like, okay, these guys seem really smart. And like after the club meeting, we all dinner or something, and I just like really like the people there, and like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep hanging out with these people. I don't know what they're talking about, but like if I keep hanging out with them, I feel I'll like become smarter through osmosis, I guess. But yeah, so kind of just that's kind of how I originally got involved.
Yeah, great. And I mean, this is also what's like very fascinating about crypto. people tend to be very, very smart, and
Mhm.
it's like very overwhelming in the beginning. I believe that's the case for most people. But what ignited your fire about crypto at the end of the day? What was like the thing that made you become like a full-time member of this
Mhm.
industry and get to start building? Was there like a certain principle that you said, okay, that's the pitch. This is why I believe in crypto.
Yeah, I mean, uh, one other thing to add is along with so growing up, my favorite subject is history. Like I love, I do all this like like kind of science and stuff, but like history was like my favorite class. Like I literally, my AP US history class, I took it 3 times just because I enjoyed it so much. Like literally, what happened was like, I took it for my class. Then there was like a study hall period that I had, which was like the open free period. So I used to go to the same history class and just like watch it again. And then the following year during my like lunch break, I would sometimes just go and like listen to the history class again because I just like loved that class a lot. And so when I got to college, I was like, I actually ended up trying to do a minor in political economy, which is like, it's kind of like the intersection of like economics and like the political infrastructure around it. And so I kind of, uh, what I learned, so I've always been interested in like political economic stuff. And for me, like I wanted to do something that uses technology to impact that. Like, so, you know, that freshman year, I also like was exploring other things other than just robotics and crypto. I was doing a lot of like data visualization work as well. So my first college internship was actually in data visualization, where it was my take was like, okay, there's so much data, and like decisions obviously need to be better made by data, but at the end of the day, it's still humans making the decisions, and so you need to have a way of like taking data and like how do you visualize it and express it to humans in the most like effective way. So that's kind of what I was doing for a bit. But so yeah, basically, I was always interested in like the intersection of like politics and technology. So obviously, Bitcoin is the perfect fit for that. And then I was always very libertarian, like just growing up. You know, yeah, I always always very libertarian. So when I learned about Bitcoin, like I said, I originally got into it from the tech side of like, oh wow, like just these things are really cool and smart and whatnot. But then it's like when I committed to it basically based off of this like, political impact that it will have. And like and it's kind of crazy how like far things have gotten since then. Like, I was like thinking in like this happened to me like a year ago or something, but I was just like in the shower one day and I was just like thinking to myself, and I was like, man, the fact that El Salvador like has Bitcoin as a legal tender, people was like, oh yeah, it's like El Salvador, what a small country. But it's like, I'm just thinking about like 7 years ago, like the fact that a country is like making this thing legal tender is just like that was like not in our like wildest dreams at the time. And it's like, I don't know. It's just really cool to see that like how far everything's gotten from those like days, and we were like just like dreaming of like, oh, will like how will Bitcoin like grow, and like yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's like so much more to unpack here because now we are even further than that. We finally got the Bitcoin ETF, which many
Hmm.
people did not believe in anymore. And there are like so many developments also going on in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Many people have forgotten about it after the run up of DeFi, that you can actually also build things potentially with Bitcoin. We will talk about that in a second. But to conclude what you just have said, it was like kind of a mix of what can you do with this technology to impact real life, to impact politics, and looking at the history, how things gone so far. How
Yeah.
can Bitcoin step in here? Were you also interested in the Austrian school of economics? Was this also something that you was fascinated by?
Yeah, definitely. Like, a big fan of like Hayek and stuff, and like, free market. Yeah. Open, uh, yeah, Hayekian systems basically. And I think that still honestly drives a lot of my like worldview is like how do you design I call it like how do you design Hayekian systems, and like this is like fast forwarding a lot, but like I think I've like even like with mesh security and stuff, I always like call it, oh, this is the Hayekian approach to shared security and stuff like that, because it's all about like, okay, free market like systems where it's like not top down centralized control, but like let bottom up like emergent behaviors like emerge basically. And I think like I was a fan of like following these like grassroots movements, right? So like Bitcoin was like a grassroots movement. I was also like really I was like very closely following. It's like I don't know if people remember, it's not big anymore, but like the Pirate Party at the time was like this like growing this movement
in Germany.
It was like throughout all of Europe really. So there was like it started originally in Sweden, but yeah, then it grew it into it was the biggest political party in Iceland for like a little bit. There's some in Germany. That the mayor of Prague was Pirate Party. So I was like I started like in the UC Berkeley like student government. I started like a Pirate Party, and I ran, and like I won one of the seats and stuff. So but yeah, so that's another like I was always like very interested in following these like new like libertarian political movements.
Yeah, like I completely forgot about this party, but yeah, they were literally a meme for quite some time in Germany. They're still around.
There's a one of my favorite books. It's by Rick Valkvinge. He's like the founder of the Pirate Party. It's called Swarmwise, and it's basically like it's his like tactical guidebook to creating like like decentralized political movements. And I think it's like seeing how quick like I think it's great to see how quickly he like developed like the political party, like how like within like just a few years it became an actual like prominent political force. But then it's also I think it's just like a really interesting thing to like read on how to lead and run decentralized movements. And I think like anyone who's building DAOs today should really like read this thing and like take a lot take some it actually runs very counter to how a lot of DAOs work today, and I think it's definitely worth reading.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite parts in this format. We talk about books a lot, what books are important for people, what are their favorite books. So yeah, definitely give it a read.
I actually think so. If you want some of my favorite books or things, if you go to my website, I actually have like a list. There's if you go to sunnyagar97.com/canon, CANON. So like canon is this idea of like you have like the Western canon. It's like the set of texts that are like most important to like Western civilization or help you like get this so I have my Sunny's canon. It's like it's the list of like all these like books. Some of them are books, a lot of them are actually blog posts, some of them are like podcast episodes and stuff. But yeah, it's like here's like the list of like things that I've read that have like fundamentally like shaped my worldview and stuff. So I think Swarmwise is like somewhere on there. Yeah.
So if you would need to nail it down, what are your 3 favorite books that you would strongly recommend everyone to read it?
Books only, or can it also be like blog posts and stuff?
Books only for now, and then we
books
link
only.
everyone.
I think 0 to 1 is probably pretty high up there. Let's see, Swarmwise and Sapiens.
Sapiens. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've also read Sapiens, and 0 to 1, the one from Peter Thiel, right?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a good selection.
I think that I'm looking at the list right now. I think those are the only books on there. That's why I had to say those 3. I think the rest of them are all like podcasts or a lot of blog posts. That's mostly what a lot of them are.
Yeah, but we will definitely link that in the description below for people to check it out. But yeah, let's get back to the Bitcoin topic, because like I've heard something very interesting from one of the Cosmos community members like recently just in Korea, and I really need to ask you that, because I've heard that in your opinion, proof of work is still the most decentralized consensus algorithm. So where does this statement come from? And yeah, what is like still the thing why you're like such a Bitcoin cheerleader, because even though you're very deep in Cosmos, you attend also a lot of Ethereum hackathons. You are still a big Bitcoin cheerleader. I believe it's also in your Twitter profile. So yeah, what's going on there?
Yeah, I don't, I'm not sure where you saw that I said Bitcoin proof of work is the most decentralized. I actually don't think that's true. I think proof of work is actually way too centralized. I think that's one of the biggest faults of proof of work. I think proof of work has a lot of. I do think that proof of stake is better than proof of work, obviously, because that's why I spent a long time working on it. But like, okay, so what are the benefits of proof of work? One is I think it from like a purely like intellectual ideological perspective, it is a very fair distribution mechanism, right? The idea of that, like, okay, Bitcoin needs to distribute its, everything today launch it like distributes via an ICO or an airdrop or something, right? But if you're like the original proof of work thing, original cryptocurrency, how do you distribute, right? Like, okay, there's nothing to airdrop to or like easily airdrop to. So you have to run an ICO, you have to do a sale. But like, what do you run the sale in? How do you do it decentralized, right? Like, you can't do it, can't pay in dollars or whatever, right? So it's like, okay, it's an ICO that lasts like 100 years, and you buy in with like the universal currency, which is energy, and then you basically pay energy, and then you like it's kind of like a burn drop, right? Where it's like, oh, you have to burn something, your energy, and then you get these tokens, and then it has this like tapering off auction system over the course of like 140 years, and then eventually it ends. So I think proof of work is great at that. There are some things that other things that it does, which is nice. It's like permissionless entry, where even if the network is fully taken over, like you can still add hash power to the system. You get like protection from long range attacks, where it's like, okay, a block that happened a year ago, it will stay. And so that's something you don't get with proof of stake, right? Where after you're past the unbonding period, you could, in theory, like, you have to rely on social consensus in order to prevent a fork from happening, like from a block that's a year old. Those are all like small things. I don't think that's like the reason. Like, the original product of Babylon was just taking proof of stake chains and checkpointing them into proof of work so that the proof of stake chains get that like long range protection. That's nice. I don't think that long range protection is compelling enough compared to like, I think the relying on the proof of work electricity consumption for the actual safety and consensus of your protocol is just like, as the block reward goes down, I think it just becomes like harder and harder. You go like, eventually the ICO period of Bitcoin has to stop, right? The block subsidy is going to go to zero. I don't think fees are going to be enough to get the electricity consumption needed to secure it properly. And I think at some point, here's my hot take. I think that at some point Bitcoin will have to switch to proof of stake. It's not going to happen like now or next year, maybe like 10 years from now, probably like, I think within like 20 to 30 years, I think Bitcoin will have to switch to proof of stake, because at some point the block subsidy is going to get too low that you're going to need to use then the proof of work miners are not going to be incentivized to protect the network. Finality periods are going to go up to days, and it's like, it's going to be terrible UX. You're going to switch to proof of stake at that point. Now, I think what you might have saw was I was like just saying, hey, I'm bearish on proof of stake in the sense that it's not the end state. I think it is, I think proof of stake has the faster finality properties of proof of stake. I think stake is more decentralized than hash rate, right? Hash rate is controlled by a few like large miners, but like, capital is more decentralized than like cash power like access. So it's more decentralized than proof of work, but it's still very centralized, right? Like proof of capital, it centralizes very, very quickly. There are other options for how like other consensus protocols. And my point was just like, I feel like as an industry, it's like yes, we solved proof of stake. Yeah, we did it, right? Like, I what we started in the space like 7 years ago, proof of stake was an idea, and it's like, yes, we accomplished it, but that doesn't mean we have to stop. It's not the end state, I think, right? It's like, great, we did proof of stake. What else is out there? What is the rest of the design space look like that we could explore for like other ways of doing consensus protocols? So, there's some people working on like proof of storage, right? Access to data thing, right? So there's some benefits of that compared to proof of work, which is like you're not having to burn electricity. You're just having to, it's more like, it's kind of like staking because you fill up hard drives with data, but then you can, like, if you want to stop, you can empty those hard drives and use them for other use cases, right? So it's not like you're burning something. So there's some benefits to proof of storage. There's people working on proof of useful work, right? Where it's like, okay, let's make it proof of work, but instead of this like utterly useless like hashing, like maybe we use it to solve zero knowledge proofs, or we use it to, whatever it is, right? Let's make the work that we're doing useful. Or the one that I'm like personally interested in is these like web of trust reputation systems where you reputation is also a scarce thing, right? And so I think it's possible to design consensus protocols that don't use a resource like electricity or stake to limit it, but it's based off of this a web of trust style system. The closest attempt to build this, well, okay, the first attempt to build this was Ripple. They just failed at it really badly. The only real attempt to build it was Stellar. So Stellar has a web of trust consensus protocol built in, but the way it's designed is it's for reasons we can go into, but like it's not the optimal design for how do you do it, and it ends up being more centralized than you'd want because of how it's architected. I think that there is possibility for like web of trust based consensus protocols as well, right? Like I think you can potentially architect it correctly such that you can, make it so you don't have to stake anything. You just declare your trust graph, your social graph, and we'll still have a way of coming to consensus. At the end of the day, proof of work, proof of stake, all you're trying to do is do Sybil resistance, right? That's what it's all about. And we can do Sybil resistance via other systems. So anyways, long story short, my point was just like proof of stake, we did a good job. I think eventually, like, proof of work will have to make way for proof of work and proof of stake proof of work will definitely have to make way for something different, right? Whether that's proof of stake in 20 years, or maybe we invent something new. Maybe we invent proof of useful work, or maybe we invent reputation based systems. But it's like, let's not assume proof of stake is the end state.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and there are still some gaps in proof of stake, and then also the question is, what kind of proof of stake do we talk about? Do we talk about the proof of stake design that we know on the Cosmos, or do we talk about the proof of stake design that we have in the Ethereum ecosystem? So yeah, totally agree that there's still space to innovate. But yeah, interesting hot take that Bitcoin could run on proof of stake in a couple of years from now.
I mean, I've started the process, right? Because I got Babylon to pivot to Bitcoin restaking, and that's part of my hidden way of introducing staking to Bitcoiners.
Yeah, in a kind of hidden way. But yeah, like I think Babylon is a very good keyword here because lots of people thought, okay, Bitcoin, that's it, proof of like a nice storage. But now we see more and more innovations in the Bitcoin ecosystem, actually. Besides Babylon, I was also surprised to see so many people thinking about layers, like layer 2 style applications on top of Bitcoin. So what are your thoughts on this development? Because it doesn't like really align with, the meme that we had in 2021 as like a secure hedge against inflation with like a finished product. That doesn't have too many potential security flaws because it's like a finished product at the end of the day. So what do you think about this development that we are now going towards to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bitcoin product is this like digital gold asset, right? But now the thing is, you want to be able to use digital gold for other things. I think the Bitcoin blockchain should be pretty minimalistic. You don't want the Bitcoin blockchain to have like smart contracting and all this kind of stuff built on top of it. All you want is the Bitcoin blockchain to have secure, decentralized bridging. And that way, BTC, the asset, can flow onto other blockchains to be used there. That's the goal basically. And so, like a lot of these Bitcoin L2s, a lot of them are actually like kind of doing that, where they're developing like new versions of bridging, right? So they're like, what do you call it? They are like BitVM based bridging, like stuff that like Botanics and stuff are working on. So there's different. Yeah, so I don't think anyone is saying that like the Bitcoin blockchain needs to have like smart contracting and stuff on it. It's what are the things that we need to add to the Bitcoin blockchain to make bridging more decentralized? That's the question. And so maybe that involves like maybe that means we have to have a ZK verifying, like a new opcode in Bitcoin that just verifies ZK proofs, right? Because you want to make the bridging process of Bitcoin onto these rollups more secure, right? That's all I think within the realm of possibility. But I don't think we should have a smart contracting system on Bitcoin main chain.
Yeah, also totally agree on that, and I think there's also nothing where you go forward to, but yet still nonetheless very interesting to see that more and more people are experimenting like generally in the Bitcoin ecosystem, because everything was very DeFi focused in the Ethereum ecosystem in the past 2 years.
It's very, I mean, it was inevitable, right? I've been calling this for a long time. I've been like, but I go to like Satoshi Roundtable. I tell people like, come on, we gotta let like DeFi on Bitcoin. Like, it just never was. There was no excitement around it. I think I've told you before, but like, I started working on Cosmos to build the app layer for Bitcoin, right? I didn't want to work on Ethereum because I wanted to be like, okay, I want to build stuff for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is the original app chain, and the asset is going to flow onto every chain. So, but the energy just wasn't there in Bitcoin, right? No one wanted to do it. It just like, and so we were kind of just like, there's no vitality there, and so it was not a focus for Cosmos, right? But then ordinals came along and changed everything. Ordinals were like the trigger, and then like the work that Yudi and did on like changing. There was a cultural shift in Bitcoin, and I was like telling people this like a year ago when I saw it happening. I don't like last ETH Denver. I saw the trinkets of it. This year, it's like it's fully blown out at NFT NYC. It's like I feel like ordinals were like the hot thing at NFT NYC, not anything else. And it's like there's been a huge cultural shift in Bitcoin, and now like the demand is there, the excitement is there, and I think Bitcoin ecosystem will probably be bigger than Ethereum ecosystem. Like Ethereum has what? Bitcoin has like 2 to 3x the market cap, right? There's just so much capital there waiting to be unleashed. And I think that the Bitcoin ecosystem is like the only thing that can like replace like Ethereum, right? And it was so why am, and you asked earlier like why am I so pro Bitcoin? It's like for me it's just like I don't know. Maybe it's like your first love. You always remember that one. But it's also like, it's the flag of the industry, right? Like, I feel like the ethos of Bitcoin, like what it represents the crypto movement as a whole, right? Everyone knows what Bitcoin is. You can go, I can go out on the street right now and ask a random person, like, do you know what Bitcoin is? And they probably do. Ask them, do you know what Ethereum is? They actually probably don't know what it is, right? And like, I feel Bitcoin is so easy to pitch people. Like, I like talk to even like friends who work in like Silicon Valley tech companies. Like, I can pitch Bitcoin to them, no problem. They get it. They're like, yes, I like you pitch the vision of digital gold, why it's useful, all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I can pitch Osmosis to them very well. They're like, okay, yes, I understand the point of a decentralized exchange, privacy, all this kind of stuff. I don't know how to pitch Ethereum. Maybe I'm just bad at it, but like, I can't explain why a platform for like building applications should be worth like $1 trillion. It doesn't connect for me at least.
And what do your people think when you pitch Urbit?
um I think they find it like intriguing. The concept. I think Urbit, like I said, it's like more of just like a technically interesting thing. I think they're also pretty skeptical that it's gonna like work because like the client server architecture of the web is just like so powerful. It's easy, and I think Urbit, like I think everyone when I pitch it, it's like it's very much a very like yeah, this is a very idealistic thing that's not gonna work because of how like centralized like natural forces like push things towards centralization. But sometimes in the world you just need some people to like vehemently like try to push for the decentralized architecture. Like you could say the same thing about like the internet architecture, like the fact that we had like a much more decentralized version of the internet than the early networking. You had the earlier networking systems that were like more centralized, and you just had basically what you just had was you had a and the natural state of things was like you probably would have actually ended up with the internet being controlled by like the telecom companies because they would have owned all the pipes and everything. But then like what ended up happening, you just had a few like vehemently like passionate people like pushing for the decentralized approach, and they ended up winning the like the internet war. And so I think that like likelihood of success of like of something like Urbit. It doesn't have to be Urbit necessarily, but something that pushes for like I think it's honestly, in my opinion, I think it's too late, right? I think the web has just existed for so long in this more client server architecture that it might be too late to try to shift it towards a decentralized architecture. But I'm happy that there are passionate diehards still working to try to make it happen.
Yeah, and if you are interested to dive deeper into Urbit, actually, we just released an episode with Sunny a couple of weeks ago. So please feel free to check that one out as well, because Urbit is really about decentralizing the entire infrastructure of the internet. Actually, that you have like true decentralized applications. So yeah, very very interesting topic. So if you want to dive deeper into that, please feel free to do so by checking out the episode and the link below. But yeah, like actually, Urbit is another topic that is like driven by a lot of principles that we've also seen in Bitcoin and like the narrative of everyone who is in crypto. So to basically form this a little bit, you mentioned your interest in politics. Like what is like the biggest principle you follow, your inner compass in this industry that is full of mania and partially greed? What is like the principle that you follow the most, keeping in mind that you are so much into Bitcoin, interested into Urbit, building a decentralized exchange? Where does this all fall into?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think my driving principle is one of like experimentation and like localism, where people are like, oh, what is your political like thing? You're like I'm a localist, right? Where I want to see many experiments, right? I don't know what policies work the best, right? Like whether in like the real world with like national level like policies or on crypto architectures and designs. And so I just am against one size fit all solutions. I'm against one world government. I'm against one world chain. And I just want to see like as many experiments as possible and let like competition figure out which ones work. I'm a big believer in like, you know, natural selection style systems and like, letting competition play out and seeing, you can theorize as much as you want about what's the best architecture for things, but it's just a matter of putting stuff into practice and seeing what works. So yeah, I mean, I think with Bitcoin. Like I said, I believe in Bitcoin, but I think I'm happy that there's many other attempts at like different monetary policies, right? Ethereum does a very different monetary policy architecture than Bitcoin. Uh, Atom does a very different monetary policy architecture than Bitcoin, and I want multiple like systems to like coexist. And I think what will happen is naturally there'll always be power laws and things, and the bigger what some things will, there'll be 80-20 rules, right? Some things will be much bigger than others, but I think that having that competition is important. And what's like kind of you can see actually in the canon, one of the other things that's a big driver for me is like Schumpeter's like theories of creative destruction. So Schumpeter, he's like a an economist, and so he has this idea of creative destruction where like what happens is like different industries. Okay, so my interpretation of like how it is like competition doesn't exist at a snapshot in time. If at any snapshot in time you look at stuff, things will look relatively monopolistic, right? Where you'll always have like in any industry, like, oh, one company will own like 80% of the market share. And you're like, that's not like a competitive industry. But what actually competition occurs over time. You have to look at it temporally. As long as that company that owns that 80% market share is cycling and like changes over the course of like every 20, 30 years, that's how competition really plays out. You have everyone striving to become that monopoly for a bit of time, right? Like, and once upon a time, if you look like at tech stuff, right? Microsoft was the biggest, and now it's like been replaced by Apple, or like Google had its period of like absolute monopolization of like the web, right? But it's like they're like getting hit pretty hard, right? I think OpenAI is like giving them a serious threat, and it's like as long as competition takes place over periods of time, and so you just want to build frameworks and like as a platform designer, or like you just want to design frameworks and like environments that allows competition to breed.
Yeah, I think this is like a very good way to think of, especially the crypto industry generally, and also speaks for like a multi-chain future. But yeah, you also mentioned Atom for the first time on the show now. You have also worked a lot on Cosmos Hub related things in the very, very early days. So before we like basically form everything together with Osmosis, with Bitcoin, the Cosmos, eventually even Urbit, can you talk us a little bit more about you entering the Cosmos, the early Cosmos days in Berlin? What fascinated you about it, and your feelings about the interchain today?
Yeah. So, like the question was how did I get into Cosmos, right?
Yeah, into Cosmos, where we are today with the Cosmos, and yeah, maybe the early Cosmos days in Berlin.
Yeah. So I was actually, so how I got into it was like I said, I was at Consensus. It was like a Ethereum dev company in New York. This was like the summer after my sophomore year of college. And so I was doing some cool stuff there. I was working on this project called Alethio, which was like, I would say kind of like the early version of the graph, like the right idea, wrong timing, I guess. And then I was also helping with like Consensus Academy, which is like their like developer course. But I wanted to like, so what happened was I got really interested in proof of stake that summer. Like I had a friend who I made at Consensus, still a very close friend of mine. His name is Nate Rush. But he got me like super into proof of stake, and I just got obsessed. And so at the time, Consensus wasn't really doing anything with like proof of stake work. They were kind of more focused on like building out a lot of apps and stuff. And so I was like, I want to figure out how to get involved with proof of stake stuff. I read all the proof of stake white papers, and the one that I found the most compelling was Tendermint. And so I kind of knew one of my friends from college. He knew Jim Yang, who used to work at the All in Bits, the company, and he put me in touch with him. And I kind of pitched him like, hey, I have these ideas about Tendermint. Like, hey, I read the paper. I think there's actually this improvement you can do here. And so he was pretty impressed. And so I kind of started working with them. And then they pitched Cosmos to me, and like this idea of like the app chains and stuff. So I'd heard about Cosmos before, but I kind of like ignored it because at the time I was like very anti proof of stake. I was Bitcoin maxi. I was like, what is this crap? But then he pitched Cosmos to me, and it actually like a lot of it clicked, especially after like while I was thinking about it after talking to them. I met David Vorik, who was like the from Saya. I met him. That's like just at a conference and like at a bar, and he like explained to me like I asked him at the time like so right around this time, StoreJ, if you remember that project,
Mhm.
it just moved to Ethereum. It just launched their token on Ethereum and stuff. And I was asking David, like, hey, like, why is Saya not like also moving onto Ethereum? It seems like that's the hot thing now. Everyone's moving onto Ethereum. And then he pitched to me like, no, this is why Saya is like an independent standalone blockchain. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And so then like the Cosmos stuff all clicked for me. I'm like, okay, yes, a network of independent app chains. This is like so obvious. And so yeah, I started working with them. I was just like, when I started, I was just doing like, I don't know, random stuff. I was like, they were holding a hackathon in New York, and I was just like helping them run the hackathon and like I don't know, just like small tasks. But then I met Jay. I talked about like how like a lot of the ideas for ICS came about during like Jay came to New York that summer for like some conference at Cornell, and so I remember like we came up with the idea of ICS on the whiteboard. And yeah, so I kind of like basically I just enjoyed what I was doing at Cosmos so much. They were giving me so many learning opportunities and like opportunities to kind of like be like upfront and like be like a spokesperson for Cosmos, which is something I really like to do. Like I was at a conference and like they like let me. I'm like, hey, can I be on the panel? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I was like on a panel with like Joe Lubin and stuff like that. And so like they gave me a lot of opportunity and stuff. And so I kind of uh basically, but then come September, I had to go back to school, and I was like I was already like contemplating whether I should like drop out and focus on Cosmos stuff and like, but I was planning on going back to school. And then what happened was the day before my classes were supposed to start, or like a few days before, the syllabus for some of the classes started coming out, and I saw that the midterm for one of my classes conflicted with DevCon. And so I was like, oh, I really want to attend like DevCon. So I kind of emailed the professor and said like, hey, there's this like conference I want to like attend. It's a crypto conference. Like, can I attend? By the way, this professor, his name is Nick Weaver. He's like infamously hates crypto. So I don't know if that was a role in it or not, but he's like, no, like, you can't, you have to take a 0 on the midterm. It's like, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. So I was like, I went on the day before classes. I was a little bit drunk because after the day before classes, people are partying and stuff. Everyone just got back to school. I went on the site to like delete, like just drop that one course, like cancel that one course. And I did that, and I'm just sitting on the site, and I'm like, you know what, like this is gonna keep happening. Like, school is gonna keep coming into conflict with like some of this crypto stuff I want to do, and I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'm dropping all my courses. So yeah, I dropped out, and then I reached out to the Cosmos team, like, hey, can I join full time? And they're like, yeah, sure. So that's how I got involved with Cosmos.
Yeah, lovely. So you went full-time crypto essentially because of DevCon. That
Yes,
was like a catalyzer.
yes. So thank you to Nick Weaver. He got me into crypto full time. So
Even though he doesn't like crypto,
he
which is
hates crypto. Like
a good
you
coincidence.
can see his like Twitter thread. He like so he teaches like the computer security course at Berkeley, and every year he has this one lecture where he just talks about like shits on crypto for like the whole lecture.
Yeah, I think are these online? I think that would be like
Probably,
very
yeah.
very funny to watch. Yeah, another recommendation. But yeah, then you were like part of the interchain, and like what year are we in right now?
2017.
2017. So there was no much talk about IBC. Osmosis was like still
No.
years ahead. So if you reflect, like I had like a small presentation in Solo about the interchain, and if you just compare the interchain from 2021 to now, it's like it's like an explosion. And if you now
Mhm.
compare it with 2017, it's like even more impressive what has happened
Yeah.
in the past years. So yeah, what are your thoughts of the interchain? Like everything that you guys talked about in 2017 already, would you say that yeah, mission accomplished? Or yeah, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on the interchain? Are we on track, and where are we? Where's the Cosmos Hub?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways, okay, I have to take these separately, right? Like the interchain has happened, right? I think like all of our ideas that we had have started coming to fruition, right? Where it's like, okay, even with Ethereum shift towards like more L2s, like going multi-chain, like the single chain sharding, that's not going to work. You have to have like multi-chains, and now you even have like app specific roll ups and stuff. So that I think we were right on. Um, all this restaking stuff, like like I said, Jay and I came up with ICS and stuff at the time. Like that's all playing out right now with like Eigenlayer and everything. So we were right about that. We were right about like I think we were right about proof of stake. So that's I think something that's easy to forget is that at the time, like we were pretty radical on the proof of stake stuff, and I think that has eventually like now it's the default for everything, right? So I think that's definitely changed. We were right about. I think things we were not right about is I thought okay, I think we were more bearish the EVM than we should have been. I think like at the time we were like, oh, this EVM stack is like so bad and it's like it's not gonna last. And it's like here we are. Like it's bad, but it has so much network effects that tooling is built around it. It's okay. I still think that Java lasted for years and with its network effects, but eventually got replaced, right? And I still am long term kind of bearish on the current state on the EVM unless they like develop rapidly. But like so I think like you know I still think I'm slightly bearish on the EVM, but I will give it credit that it has succeeded much more than we would have expected. Um, at the same time, I actually do think that like it's a good thing Cosmos didn't use the EVM because I think that Solana and Cosmos both have like unique like non-mercenary devs because we have a unique developer stack. Even after FTX collapsed, developers stayed on Solana because it's a stack that they knew and they spent time learning. Or after Terra collapsed, a lot of those developers still stayed in Cosmos because they liked Cosmwasm, right? They this is a stack that they knew. They spent time learning. They built expertise around. Um, and with when you this is why actually I tell all the Bitcoin L2 people I'm bearish EVM Bitcoin L2s. Like I think Bitcoin is a strong enough brand that you can build a unique developer stack and you need people to chew glass, right? Like developers will chew glass to learn a new stack, but once they've done it, they will stick around. You're not going to get these like mercenary, like what happened on Avalanche was you got all these like mercenary copy pasta stuff, and then no one's like really like that aligned, like will stick around with Avalanche. They'll go to the next place that gives them the grants, right? And so in that sense, I think it was the right thing to not use the EVM, but just like I said, I think we were more bearish than we should have been. I think I think there's more consensus protocols than we would have expected. We would have expected Tendermint to become. I think Tendermint is very dominant, but I think we would have expected it to be more dominant, so that way we can use IBC in more places. Now, okay, let's talk about like the elephant in the room is like what happened with the Cosmos Hub. I think honestly, the problem with the Cosmos Hub is the dev team fell apart, right? So after AIB, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people might be aware with the story, but basically, okay, that's actually, in all fairness, let's talk a little bit like what happened before. Yes, everyone knows the public. Oh, Jay went insane, yada yada. But like, I think even before that, there was like a problem where it was like, I would say that the first 2 years I was at AIB, everything was like, everyone was so basically everyone knew that we had to launch the Cosmos Hub. That was like prime directive. That was like prime directive where it was like we had committed to the world that we would launch the Cosmos Hub by December 2017. We ended up launching like March 2019, so almost like a year and a half delayed. But what those did was it made it so it was like any hour you weren't working on helping launch the Cosmos Hub, it's like we just delayed Cosmos Hub launch by an hour. And it's just like everyone was so aligned, so mission of like, we have to launch the Cosmos Hub. That was like all we did. After the Cosmos Hub launched, I think there was a little bit of like, now what? Like, what do we work on next? Right? Like, should we go work on ICS stuff? Should we go work on Bitcoin and Ethereum bridges? Should we go work on IBC? Like, there was not a lot of clear. Should we go work on like improving the developer stack to make it easier to onboard more projects onto Cosmos? Like, I think there was a little bit of a lack of like what of direction and vision. And this is kind of what I told Jay. I'm like, hey, Jay, you need to like, the company is lacking direction right now. You need to come up with a direction for everyone. And he like kind of came up with this whole, I don't know if you remember this thing called Virgo, and like it was this like wacky thing. It like didn't make a lot of sense, and everyone was like, what the fuck? And so that kind of like caused a lot of strife where it was like people, yeah, and there was like a divide growing between a lot of the engineers and then a lot of like the management of the company. A lot of the management was in the SF Bay area. A lot of the engineers were in Berlin, and just the physical separation caused like some like communication issues and stuff, whatnot. So that all like was like boiling, and then it hit a tipping point. Like we all like went away for Christmas break, and then we came back, and when we come back, Jay's on a different plane of existence, and like, and he's Jesus Stein now, and like and so yeah, after that the whole company kind of fell apart. All the engineers like, what is this? We don't want to work for this company anymore. So we all kind of left. Everyone wanted to still keep working on Cosmos, right? That's the thing. So we all had to go start our own things. Like, I started working on Osmosis. Ishmael started Celestia. Zaki started Sommelier. Jack started like Juno and Strange Love and all that kind of stuff. Like you had all of these like offshoot projects where people started things, but no one had any Atom, right? And like, so we're all like, okay, well, like, why are we going to work on Atom, right? And so, and some people did, right? The ICF did its part to try to like fund people to work on the Cosmos Hub, but like the core team just wasn't there anymore. Like Chris started Anoma, and so it's like basically what ended up happening was Atom was this like ghost coin that was left without a dev team, and it kind of never really built a proper dev team up. Or like I don't think it ever built like an A tier dev team out of it. Like I think the team that we had at AIB was like an A tier team. Like, just the fact, if you look at all the projects that were started by all of the engineers after spinning out, it's like that was like a world-class dev team we had there. But it's like, unfortunately, it blew up. And then Atom was just left like as an orphan. And so now it's like, I feel like now what's like interesting is like the position Atom is left in is it needs to, a lot of the products that you wanted to build require dev teams, right? To build we're like, okay, let's build a Bitcoin that causes, Atom was supposed to be like have the Bitcoin and Ethereum bridge built in. But the problem is like, you need a dev team for that. Or to build ICS properly, right? Like the end state, like which is real something more like mesh security. You need a dev team for that. To build like, all this sorts of stuff, you need dev teams around, and Atom just doesn't have a dev team. And so I think what the position Atom was stuck in now is like, okay, you have to figure out what is a product that you can do to monetize your lindiness and market cap that doesn't require an A-class dev team. And that's kind of like the position Atom has been stuck in for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's like building a DEX, right? It tried to do a DEX as well. Problem is, if you don't have an A-tier dev team, you're going to get outcompeted. And it's like, you have to figure out what are the products you can build that don't require a dev team.
Yeah, I think that's like a conclusion how many people feel about the Cosmos Hub right now.
Yeah.
And like the pain points, actually, that so much talent like primarily got lost. So It's like maybe the I mean, like if you look at the people who worked on the Cosmos Hub back in the days in Berlin, it's
Yeah.
like a team of OGs, and it's unimaginable where the journey could have gone. Like with Ismail primarily from Celestia, you, Chris, like all of the OG projects that we know in the Cosmos today were like Hub primarily. So you would like finger point back to the loss of talents, right?
Yeah, I think the company blowing up, I think after that was like, I don't know, Adam was kind of doomed from then on. or,
Yeah.
or I guess like what I mean, or it's like it's more like the set of opportunities and paths that it could take was heavily limited.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very good conclusion. But yeah, like you mentioned it, the Cosmos. I think maybe there's also one of the reasons why the interchain is so powerful right now, because we have so many strong teams working on independent projects. And the Cosmos,
Hmm.
I think that's also a way to look at it. I don't think that we would have like that many promising chains in the Cosmos without so much talent,
Yeah.
working in the interchain. So yeah, now, the last topic of today, Osmosis, obviously. You launched Osmosis in 2021 with a lot of buzz. Like everyone was hanging out on Osmosis during these days. It came like to life in the summer of 2021. I also remember I was like super excited about it. It was like actually the first bigger airdrop in the Cosmos. So yeah, how, like, maybe you can reflect on this strong development that Osmosis experienced, that run up to become the AMM in the interchain. We have seen some AMMs coming and going, but Osmosis, stayed the sheriff in town,
Hmm.
to put it like this. Then you experienced the super harsh bear market. So yeah, how did you experience all of this, and where
Yeah.
is Osmosis heading now?
Yeah. So I mean, I think uh, we had like a lot of competition. A lot of people tried to take a shot at Osmosis over the years. I think it's just a matter of like uh we played a couple of cards right. I think our UX was pretty good, so big shout out to Josh for like leading a lot of that. I think like the way we use liquidity incentives, I know for a long time people were very like bearish on like, oh, why are we spending so much on incentives? The thing is, that's what kept Osmosis dominant until we could ship concentrated liquidity. And once we were able to ship concentrated liquidity, incentives have gone down. Right now Osmosis makes more in revenue than we pay in incentives. So it's like, okay, Osmosis is profitable now. And yes, we paid a lot in incentives to get there, but that kept our market share until we were able to like ship something that doesn't require incentives, which was concentrated liquidity. Um, the and then I think it's just a matter of like, you have to do a good job of like uh keeping up with the market. We saw like Tia was going to be big. Like, we saw that like, a few months before, and we're like, okay, let's make sure that like Tia, like we are the DEX for Tia. We need to win that market. And so, we did a lot. We worked with the team. We helped like incubate Milky Way. As like we're like, okay, like we need the LSD for Celestia needs to be on Osmosis, and that's how we get more Tia onto Osmosis as well. So that's something we did. Uh, yeah, and so you know, and obviously the big one was at the last bull market, we saw that UST and Luna was going to grow, and so we kind of like we weren't early into Luna and UST, but we were like before it really got crazy big, right? And so we like went and like, okay, we petitioned Terra to activate IBC basically, and we were like, hey, you need to do this, and like and so we got them to do it, and it worked great for us until it didn't, right? And like, the Terra crash like kind of damaged Osmosis pretty hard. Like this, the way the market structure was set up, that everything was paired with Osmo. Everyone who was running from Luna and UST, they sold into Osmo and then into like dollars. And so yeah, Osmo took a huge hit after that, basically. Um, but as ecosystem, Cosmos kind of got a lot of, once again, like I said, all the developers stuck around from Terra, right? And so a lot of those developers started building on top of Osmosis, because after Terra collapsed, Osmosis was like the biggest CosmWasm network by like ecosystem, right? So like we got Mars and Levana and all these sorts of like projects to continue building in Cosmos. Skip was like an Xterra project, right? We like got them to become an Osmosis core dev team. Like, so, we kind of the Terra crash, while it similar to the AIB thing, right? It was a tragedy, but it also like bootstrapped a lot of the ecosystem. The Terra crash also bootstrapped a lot of the Cosmos ecosystem today. And so, yeah, that's where we kind of are. We made it to the bear market. It was getting tough there for a while, to be honest. But I think, the Celestia launch definitely brought some vitality back into Cosmos. DYDX moving showed, the strength of the stack. USDC helps. And I think, yeah, I don't think we're in the rest on our laurels, right? I think like Solana recovery was amazing. Like, I think Cosmos still has a ways to go. And I think, like I said, I think if I had to bet at all, I'm going to bet on Bitcoin, right? I think that the way I said it before, and I'll say it again, like Cosmos needs to be the app layer for Bitcoin. That's how we win. And we just need to keep, I'm doing my part to help on this, right? Like, I helped like with Babylon, like shifted them towards a product that I think will bring more Bitcoin community to Cosmos. I think Thorchain is doing a really good job with like, and so I think, I think there's ways to go still, right? Like, this sounds silly, but I think this is actually a good idea. I think we should rename Cosmwasm to Bitwasm. I think it's a subtle branding thing, but I think it'll actually just be like a huge like thing. So I don't know. That's one. But repricing a lot. I'm talking Stargaze about repricing a lot of like the NFTs instead of in stars, make the default be Bitcoin. I think this is like things that we need to like make an active effort in Cosmos to like rally around Bitcoin. That is how Cosmos is gonna become like as big as Ethereum, right? Because we will be the app layer for Bitcoin. We want to be the best dev stack for building things on Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and novel like way to actually look at it. Like yeah, to wrap things up a little bit. So we talked a lot about Bitcoin. We talked a lot about like slightly about Urbit. We talked about the Cosmos ecosystem and about Osmosis. Can you like just like draw a picture here, like what everything will look like in like say 5 years, 5 to 10 years from now? With Osmosis, like what does Osmosis serve to? Is it like still the DEX where everyone in crypto is trading on, or will there be much more that we have like applications on top of it that people use without even knowing that Osmosis in the back? Will there be also stocks on Osmosis, for example, tokenized versions? Like what's going on there? What's with Bitcoin? Yeah, Telia, actually, where's crypto in 5 to 10 years, and where's the interchain in Osmosis?
Yeah, I think okay, where's Bitcoin in 5 to 10 years? 5 years, 5 to 10 years, it is the new digital gold, right? It has flipped gold in market cap. And so it is like the single most high value asset, like singular asset in the world. Um, Osmosis will be, I think we want to focus on the DEX, right? We want to be, but a DEX has a lot of things. Like Binance has a lot of functionality, right? We need to like work on, yes, not just trading assets, but like, yeah, I think tokenized versions of like real world assets. Maybe it's stocks, maybe it's like other things, right? But I think that will probably, I imagine, will happen in some form. There'll be like figuring out decentralized on ramping, right? Like today, Coinbase and Binance, that's where like you on ramp via their fiat on ramps or via like Binance P2P. End goal for Osmosis, we want to build a Robinhood for the rest of the world. As long as you have access to Tether or Bitcoin or something like that, like you should be able to invest in any asset in the world. So that's the end state of what Osmosis will be, and I think Cosmos will just be like one of the dev stacks. Right? I think it is a good dev stack. Will it be the only dev stack? No. And our goal is just we want to make sure there's enough interoperability between all of the dev stacks, so that just like you can write your web server in Go or in JavaScript, in Node or in Rust, whatever you want, but everything's still interoperable over a set of common standards. And I think that's what like we just need in finance, DeFi, and like on the interchain. It's it's not the Cosmos. It's not about the Cosmos SDK. It's about the like seamless interoperability between all of these chains.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good way to draw it here. Really, last question of the day. So we talked about Osmosis coming strong out of the bear market. What is your top advice for young builders in crypto? How to stay persistent when things are getting harsh? So yeah, like maybe like 2 or 3 sentences. What is your advice for the builders and entrepreneurs in this space?
Yeah. I guess have a solid, like, have good co-founders that you can like rely on and like for support. Have a end vision in mind of what it is you're building. Or I thought, but like you also have to adapt to the market. There's a quote. It's like be be rigid on the vision, flexible on the details. So it's like, what we're building is like, I think you have to be like the end state of what you're trying to get to. But the path that you take will have many winding paths, and you kind of have to flow. As long as you're going directionally in the right direction, like, you will have to take some winding paths to get there. Like, I told you, right, originally Osmosis, we started with privacy stuff, and that's still our like one of our like primary visions. Like we want to use Osmosis as a platform to bring privacy to DeFi, but we've had to take a few winding paths until we're getting there. We're finally starting we just hired a new engineer who's starting work on our privacy work finally. So it takes some time, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good one. Actually, also know that quote. So yeah, totally agree on that. With that being said, Sunny, thank you so much for taking your time for this conversation. It was very insightful. Learned a lot of good stuff about Bitcoin. Also very liked the hot take that Bitcoin might adopt proof of stake further down the road. Very excited about Osmosis' future, and also thank you for the conclusion of the interchain. So yeah, thank you so much for joining this, and I hope I will see you on the show very soon.
All right, thank you.